recording a podcast for you.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. Okay, guys, let's talk about sex.
Woo.
And it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. I talk about it all day long. And I get so comfortable talking about it, I forget that sometimes it's uncomfortable for some people to talk about it. So I apologize if I just go off. But we want to talk about something specific when it comes to sex. And we want to talk about what's called a sex fast. And do you guys want to explain what a sex fast is? Or what?
Let's share our experience. So, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
And then I'll talk about the ins and outs of why and what's healthy and things like that.
Some best practices.
Okay? Yeah.
So it started, I was in group probably like less than 60 days. And Amy Andrews, our therapist, just kind of lobbed it out saying, okay, sex, she prefaced a sex fast with, we don't need sex for survival. Like, healthy human beings don't need sex for survival. And she's talking to all of us, and we all knew, of course. But she's like, you guys think that's actually not true. And so there's some humor there, obviously. But then she referenced a sex fast, and I started thinking about that, like, okay, so she's not asking us to have a sex fast, but I'm realizing that I was lusting after Ashlyn, and I had issues with lust. And
can you explain what that means?
Yeah, thank you. So I would objectify Ashlyn or other women for my own sexual gratification.
Okay.
And it would essentially just rob them of their humanity.
Okay.
And then I would get kind of like lost in this fantasy world. And so I realized that was an issue for me, but more like predominantly it was with Ashlyn. And I thought, okay, I need to be able to I think this is a good idea for me because I need to let go of lust, and I need to be really mindful when I lust, especially about Ashlyn.
So I remember you saying taking off those lenses of lust, like the way that you viewed women in general. So you took off those lenses of lust so that you could gain lenses of love.
Yeah, and that was the truth. And I remember I said, okay, I'm gonna do a 30-day sex fast, because I was like, anything beyond that for me right now, just starting, might be a little bit of a stretch. I didn't know how I would do with 30 days, but again, the objective was I wanted to see Ashlyn for Ashlyn. I remember that I mean, and you've got, just to preface this with everybody, Ashlyn you have scoliosis. So you have 2 Harrington rods that are fused your spine. They were put in when you were 11. You still have those, and so consequently you've had insane back pain. And I remember during the sex fast, Ashlyn was like, I need you to, we have a at-home hot stone massage little kit. She's like, I need you to give me a hot stone massage because my back is killing me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And the approach that I had with this was like, I have to be so focused. I have to be so focused during this because this is about Ashlyn and it's about hurting her. So I had to, I remember repeating to myself, constantly, see Ashlyn for who she is. See Ashlyn for who she is. Right? See Ashlyn for who she is.
Right. And
so that became like my literal, I repeated that over and over again until it was done. And that was a really important experience for me to be able to stay focused. And I can honestly say that through both of those, I didn't go to lust. Now, did I notice Ashlyn's body parts? Of course I did. But did I go to lust? I didn't. And so that was a really important catalyst for me in really being healthy. And now that sex fast, because it was such a great experience, there's a lot of takeaways, but for me personally as the addict, the recovering addict, now it's totally cool because I can go to the pool, like the city pool. I can go to the lake or whatever where people are in swimming suits, and I can observe people in swimming suits, or notice people in swimming suits, not observe, but notice people in swimming suits and not go to lust.
Right.
So the sex fast just serves so many purposes. I don't know what your experience was and what your big takeaway was, or what you observed, but that was my experience.
Let me just say this before Brandon goes. When we did it, it was kind of this weird feeling, and those women who have betrayal trauma may understand this and relate to it. But you have this anger and frustration, sadness and hurt, and then you also have this weird feeling of longing for your husband.
Yes.
And it's really confusing, and it's really frustrating at times. And so the sex fast for me helped me make sense of that, give me a little bit of space and safety so that I could feel that. And I remember feeling like we were dating again, like we're high school, you know, you brush up against their shoulder and it's like exciting, you know,
Right.
because we really took it to like, we're not connecting in those ways, in physical ways.
Right. So what you guys are talking about two really helpful, important parts of the sex fast. One, you're saying, Kobe, is it helped you to scale it back and not make sex all about you. Realize that sex isn't your greatest need, and that Ashlyn isn't just an object for you to use. Right. So that sex fast really helped you. Ashlyn, what you're saying, and I see this all the time, is, you know, an addict's, Patrick Carnes in his research has found that a sex addict feels like sex is one of my greatest needs. And for a woman to be in a relationship with a man where there's constant pressure and feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to provide this for him, it's really nice to just take it off the table. And when you take it off the table, and where you say it's not going to happen, like it's just not going to happen, then you focus on other attachments in the relationship. Then, like you say, Ashlyn, the goal of a sex fast is to get you guys to really want to have sex with each other. Is because through that process, you're realizing, look, we're connecting in other ways. I want him. I desire to be close to him. I want her, and I want who she is. And it's not just about sex. And so, when you take sex off the table, and sex is a good thing in a relationship. It's healthy. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes sex can be used to manipulate. Sometimes it's a band-aid to overlook other problems. Sometimes it's just full of fear and shame and all those things. And to just say, look, we're taking a break from it. We're going to focus on the little healthy attachments in the relationship can be a really good thing. Now, I caution people to not just jump into this. This isn't something where it's like, hey, I heard this podcast, so let's just do this. Most common amount of time to do a sex fast is 90 days. And
Hashtag whoa. I hear that seriously. I'm just like,
yeah.
Like even now, honestly, it's like, oh.
I think we just lost all of our listeners.
All the dudes are like, skip. What's the next episode?
We're not listening to this.
Oh, that's funny.
That's so true.
But going 90 days without sex helps you realize you can live without sex, and so you can, and that's a reality. And 90 days without sex isn't just about the man, hanging in there and making it 90 days. That's not what it's about. It's about both of you realizing what sex really means to you in a relationship. Both of you realizing what makes you want to have sex in a healthy way, which is real connection. And so I would caution, don't jump right into it. Because what can happen is, if you're really unhealthy in the relationship and you take sex just out of the picture, then all of the things that you may be doing already will just get amplified. So things like major resentment, feeling like a power and control dynamic that can get really unhealthy. And so you want to do a sex fast when both of you are on board. It's helpful to work with a therapist who's helping you gauge attachment and working you through other ways to attach. It's really helpful. You want certain things in place.
So what you're saying is, just to make sure that I get to what you just said, is what you're saying is having a therapist can help you realize this isn't 90 days of don't. This is 90 days of don't have sex, but do a number of other things very intentionally to create connection.
Absolutely. And
okay.
So and with that intention, you want to set up some structure with your sex fast. You want to go out on a date, once, twice a week, as much as possible. You want to sit down and evaluate, how are things going with the sex fast? Let's talk about it. How is it for you? Where are you at with it? You want to practice some physical touch, however much you're open to. It might be just a little tiny bit. It might be none at all, but you want to talk about that, right?
What did we do? Do you remember?
As
far as touch is concerned?
It's been so long, but it seems like it was really exciting to hold hands. Like,
yeah.
That's how...
Did we even do that, though?
No, I think we did. And then
We said no kissing though.
no, we didn't.
It's like when I go off sugar for like a month and then I eat a grape and it's like, oh my gosh, this is great.
The
Yes.
holding hands it really was though, and like the slow, gentle, very tender, like kisses.
Yes.
Were really, really meaningful.
Right. The whole point of a sex fast is to, you get in these patterns in a relationship, and these patterns just start to cause destruction, and they start to break down the very foundation of a relationship. And what you want to do with a sex fast is take it off the table so that you can start to build that foundation from the ground up again, and that's the goal. And so when you have things set up where you can connect, things where you can communicate, you have boundaries in place physically and otherwise, you start to create safety. And when you have safety in a relationship, then a great sex life is possible, right? And so
Even after betrayal.
Definitely
Yeah.
even after betrayal.
So I have to ask the question that I'm sure some listeners are thinking, what if we do this, isn't it going to heighten his addiction?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. So I'll guess that my answer is different than what you'll expect, Ashlyn.
Okay.
Because I actually believe that it will. But here's the thing. It will heighten his triggers, right? If he's horny, then he's going to be more triggered sexually. He's going to be more driven, okay? But here's the thing, it's not your job to control his sobriety, right?
Or his sex drive.
And he can live without sex.
Yeah.
And this is something that he needs to learn, and he needs to learn how to manage, I'll call it the pain or the struggle of feeling those feelings, because he won't die. He can get through it. And so you having sex with him won't stop him from acting out.
True.
You having sex with him,
That's
if
like
you're
the best statement in this episode.
Yeah, it won't stop him from acting out. But you having a healthy sex life will alleviate some triggers, and that's a reality. A healthy sex life will alleviate some triggers for him, some sexual triggers, right? And so,
But just like it's possible to alleviate some sexual triggers, it's also possible to alleviate those sexual triggers while still not emotionally connecting. And that emotional connection that leads to a really great and healthy sex.
how many couples? And we need to do a few episodes just on sex, right?
Totally.
But how many couples have sex because she feels like I have to do it because he needs it, and so let's hurry and get it over.
Let's ask Ashlyn that question. So in our marriage,
Yes, the answer was yes. The first part of our marriage, it was absolutely that.
like first part as in how many years?
Probably first 4 years.
Yeah,
I didn't enjoy it, and I felt very pushed.
Sex is not a him thing. Men don't own sex. Men don't, hey, this is a thing for me in my marriage that I get to have. That's not what sex is. Sex is between a couple, and sex is both for the man and the woman to enjoy. And it doesn't need to be this elaborate, long, connected. It can be a quickie, as long as both people want it and are into it.
Yeah.
Sure, right? And so, in order for it to be healthy.
So
But-
one of the thought on this is,
Go ahead.
Brandon, is I would say for me that like what's a kind of like the opposite question that you just asked, like will this intensify his sex drive or whatever or worsen his sex addiction? I would also say I would volunteer my own experience, which was sex was definitely an emotional coping tool,
Right.
Okay, for me. Like if I was stressed, it was like, okay, let's have sex. And so what I think is super key to remember from this, if you're listening and considering this idea, is like not only it's not just abstain from sex, but it's also do things that will create connection, but it's also a chance to learn a couple of really key skills that will allow you to face and lean into the stresses and the emotions of life that maybe right now you're not fully doing and you're using sex as an outlet for.
I'm so glad you bring this up, Kobe, because it's so true. And I met with a guy this week who came in angry at his wife because she's always rejecting him and he never gets to have sex. And I got talking to this guy, and he doesn't have any hobbies. He doesn't have any other outlets in his life. He just depends on her to soothe him, to make him feel okay all the time. And he also uses her to feel validation as a man. When he has sex with her, he feels power and he feels like he's man enough. He has nothing else in his life that he feels that. And so she's feeling all this pressure because there is all this pressure on her to alleviate those feelings for him. And so, and what you're talking about, Kobe, learning healthy coping without using sex to take care of your stress.
That's a thing.
That can actually exist,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And having healthy living and other outlets other than sex is a thing as well. And sex is something to be enjoyed as a couple, and it's about connection. It's not something to just soothe you as a man. It's not something to give you your validation and your self-worth as a man.
Totally.
And that's what a sex fast is about, is getting rid of the sex so that you can realize that, right?
I would say that, just to add to that, like, do you remember what our routine from starting with recovery for sure has always included one thing in the morning. It's not morning sex. But one thing in the morning.
I was like, hey, where's he going with this?
One thing in the morning that has been just a foundational piece and so important. Exercise. So if you're considering that, both of you, a great thing to do as a couple would be to get up every morning and commit to working out. Right, 30 minutes, make it easy, and be okay with that. And that could be a walk, it could be a hike, it could be swimming, it could be going to the gym, whatever it could be. But what you'll find is that is a great stress relief. It will provide emotional release, and it will provide mental clarity. And you want to have mental clarity. You can't emphasize that enough. Is when you're doing a sex fast, you want to have mental clarity to connect dots emotionally, and create attachment.
I'm going to add something because I have a lot of women in my other business that I do, fitness, where they say, I want my husband to join me. And this is a really good opportunity, guys, to say, you know what? My wife's asking me to take care of myself. And guess what? When you work out, you want to take care of yourself and have sex. So,
right.
Like, in the end, it serves that purpose of, let's take a sex fast and do it right. And then gain a new healthy habit.
Right. I was so guys, take your pens out and your notebooks out right now, because I'm going to tell you how to have a healthy sex life and a lot of sex in your marriage. So you want to take notes here, okay?
Where's my pen? I need it.
And for the women as well. But step number one is safety, is trust. When you feel trust and safety together, then that's the foundation, and that's everything, okay? The next step is you want to explore her. Now, hear me out on this. It's not her physically. It's not explore all of that. It's help her explore who she is, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So when you do things with her, like pray with her, go on walks with her, go to the library and get a book together and read it and talk about that book together. But when you connect and explore things together, then there's connection there, right? And then you want to help her feel, and this goes both ways. You want to help him feel a sense of purpose and fulfillment in their life. When they feel empowered, when they feel connected to, and they feel safe, they're going to want to have sex, right?
Totally.
And so if sex is this unhealthy thing that's destroying all those things in your relationship, you might need to take a break from it, so that you can start to build those things in that foundation.
I love it. That's totally true. So, I don't know, Ash, what are your kind of like your final thoughts?
I don't know how you feel about this, but we ended our sex fast with Sensate, and it was something that our therapist had mentioned and talked about, and
explain it.
So, I'm not going to explain it well, I'm sure, but the basic part of it was that it was not sexual at all. So we'd broken the sex fast, but we still weren't having sex. It is
true. We had like 9 days past.
Yeah. So then we went into Sensate, which was touching, And it was a really cool time for us because you don't touch like private part areas. It is like everything else. So that's when I learned that Kobe likes his ear, like that's more of a turn on for him than something else.
Right.
And I wouldn't have figured that out, and he wouldn't have figured that out if we hadn't done that. So it was kind of hard, I'm not going to lie, because when you have kids at home, it said like devote 60 minutes a day to like set the mood in the room, make it
Lighting,
warm, and
music.
right.
It's a mindful, connected experience. Yeah.
Non-sexual and non-intercourse, goal-oriented experience.
Right. And so for each of us, it was like 30 minutes of me just touching and feeling, and him being mindful enough to understand, how does this make me feel?
Right.
And then it was 30 minutes of him doing the same to me.
But it was face, neck, shoulders, arms, legs. It was non-erogenous areas of the body. And what's incredible was how strong the response was on my back. How much beautiful, intimate touch took place on areas of the body that I had never considered were going to exist.
Right.
Yeah, so it was an awesome experience to end a sex fast with. I felt like, because we'd kind of gotten to that safety point, but then we needed to figure out what it meant for each of us as individuals.
Right. That's awesome. You know, and with that, you talk about giving Ashlyn a back massage and you know, touching his ear. If you have feelings of arousal, like you want to have sex, there's nothing wrong with that as you do these things, right? You're mindful, you're in that moment, you want to connect sexually, right? But what you're talking about is slowing it down, getting to know each other better, creating that safety, exploring some things with each other, and so healthy sex can then ensue, right?
Yeah.
And that's the goal. So
What's also interesting about that, though, is that it wasn't necessarily my fingertips and my palms or my hands on Ashlyn's back or on her face, but sometimes the really intimate parts of touch were using maybe my cheek, or like using my cheek and my nose together,
right,
or my chin rather than just my hands on, say, your face or on your arms, and I know that you're super uncomfortable, like with me
I just
talking
don't
about that
want
right
to
now.
trigger people.
No, but what I'm trying to identify is that like connection is like an onion, where there's just layers and layers of connection that can be experienced and had, and that I was altogether and entirely ignorant of until we had this experience. But that really great intimate touch with my nose and my cheek,
but what
only happened after the fast.
Kobe, what you're talking about is so different than, hey, I'm stressed out, so I need to get off.
Right? It's so different.
Very different. Extremely different.
So different.
Honestly, like, this episode is for any couple, really.
Oh, for sure.
Because most people, they may not have our story, but they're probably struggling in that department.
Yes, most couples. Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a super important conversation to have, and again, I would definitely emphasize, especially with our history, have a really great and educated therapist on this. Do your due diligence, talk this through, make a plan. Don't just say we're going to start on this day, but make a plan of what you will do, how you will connect, not just what you will abstain
If you
from.
start a sex fast and within the first week, the first 2 weeks, it's just ending up in a lot of resentment, a lot of fights, a lot of anger, then you need to talk to a therapist about it. Hopefully a therapist who knows what they're doing. And reevaluate what you have set up with that sex fast. I've seen it go both ways, and I've seen it be one of the most important, amazing parts of recovery for a couple, and then I've seen it just cause all kinds of damage and problems in the relationship. And so both of you need to be on board. You know, it's interesting. I've seen it several times, and usually, just this is my experience, is when the addict comes up with the idea and proposes it to his wife, it works better. But usually it's the other way around.
Interesting. Okay.
But not saying that it's right or wrong either way. Yeah. So,
Well, I have to add this. I've told this to people before, and they're like, well, we're already not having sex, so we're already doing a sex
No.
fast. And it's like,
Not the same thing.
Different.
intentional.
In any way.
Right.
In
Yes.
any way. That just implies enormous amounts of lack of safety.
A sex fast is about figuring out how to connect. Celibacy in a marriage, a sexless marriage, is about everything but that.
Yeah, totally. Guys, thanks for being here. And honestly, share this episode. Share this with people because
everyone wants
everyone
to talk
needs
about
this.
it.
It's
And everybody wants to have sex.
Yeah, everyone wants to have sex. It's pretty compelling and
Good sex, healthy sex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So check out our Facebook page, Betrayed Addicted Expert, and our website as well. We've got some great content there.
Yeah. All right, guys. See ya.
Awesome.
Peace out. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.